What's going on, everybody? This is Jordan with Conquer Trading and Investing, and we're getting ready here to take a look at some important levels on the S&P 500. We're going to take a look what's happened overnight. We're going to take a look what's happened in this session, and we're going to see what is our plan right now. You can see price right now is flirting and testing with the resistance over at 29.72. We've had some pretty big news events out of the way today, including the Fed's meeting minutes. We're going to take a look at right now what is going on. We also have some nice charts to look at over here, a possible plan of action. But before we get into all of that goodness, let's start here and look what's happened since we last left off together. That was over on the 30-minute time frame last night, and I was looking towards the market close, a breakdown of this level, this trend line over here. It was coming in at the time right around 29.29. We broke down below it, and I was looking how I could enter myself into that trade. I was looking for a green up bar, and I was looking for lower highs to begin. Now, what happened? Well, we had the green up bar, that's for sure. Now, time of day, right? Always be aware of time of day. And then what happened was we never had a lower high, right? The lower high didn't start until right over here. This was the first lower high we had. At this point, I was actually ready now to go ahead and get short. If I had a trigger, that would be price making a lower low than the previous price bar. And that kept me out of the trade until we traded back above that trend line support. It didn't hold as resistance, right? Came back up. And here was the first place that we made a lower low. But we no longer had any type of entry criteria as we were no longer above the trend line, below the trend line. So that kept me out of the trade. And then what we saw happen after that was price come back down and test again that trend line. This time it held as support. All right, and put us back into no man's land. Now, everyone who was with us for the live stream, right, they looked at the plan that we laid out. They also knew this is where we were getting off as price was testing the 29.72 resistance, the horizontal resistance over here. And I said, getting off, there's no way at this time of day that I'm going to enter a trade. We were getting close over here to New York goes to lunch, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. New York goes to lunch between 11 and 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. The reason that I personally don't trade during that time, it's a low volume time of day. In U.S. equities, the highest volume comes at the beginning of the day on the open and then again towards the close. Now, no matter what market I trade, I stick to where there's high volume periods because they give the best signals. And you could see what happened again. And now also I have to note, during the live stream today, I also said to everyone, hey, listen, right now I'm following this on the 1 hour anyway. I'm following this on the 1 hour because the price is pretty choppy. It's not really that volatile. And by going up to a higher time frame, it's going to really keep me out of any trouble. Now, regardless of the fact, here in the 30-minute, where I'm looking at right now is we're getting towards the close over here. Here in the 30-minute, we were not looking to trade during this time. And then you also had at 2 o'clock p.m. the Fed meeting minutes being released. Now, before that, we had some pretty big news. That's what sent us down over here, right? What happened was that the Senate passed a bill aimed at boosting oversight to Chinese companies. All right. Now, the market definitely reacted to this as this came across. Now, there's one thing that I really want to focus in on over here, and the reason why. If you ever seen on the Netflix documentary called The China Hustle, I absolutely recommend it. I love that documentary, The China Hustle, and I think you'll enjoy it too. Now, in Chinese law, you cannot have auditors transfer any of that data outside the country. So in other words, stated more directly, unlike companies from the US and Europe and everywhere else in the world, Chinese companies that list on the US stock exchanges are exempt from meaningful financial oversight. If you really want to understand that, watch The China Hustle. Now, Beijing, we imagine we'll be hearing from Beijing shortly, surely is going to respond. They're not going to like this at all should this bill be passed into law. And what you're seeing happen is you're seeing a lot happening actually. You're seeing, whether it's a game of Go or a game of chess being fought out on the world stage. This has to do with Taiwan, the call congratulating the new president of Taiwan, U.S. military moving into position, showing a sign of strength in the South China Sea. You are seeing China, Beijing, react, taking a very aggressive defensive posture because it's good for them also at this point to have an enemy. Don't forget, they're trying to control what's going on in their country with the loss of trust in their government, the way that the government handled the pandemic over there. Now, so the US is a good enemy to focus the people's attention on. Same thing with the US. There's an election coming up in November. Expect that this is going to increase. That's going to continue to put pressure on the markets. Watch out for it. Now, also, by the way, I just want to, a few days ago, the Fed released this semi-annual forecast for the economy, and I just want to remind you that they were very clear that if the outbreak persists, if the current pandemic virus outbreak persists, or there is a second wave of the pandemic, the downward pressure on the U.S. economy would be sustained. Not only that, they said broader solvency issues. We talked about the Fed is able to provide liquidity, and we're seeing the markets respond right now to that liquidity, even though the Fed thinks that assets are overpriced. We're seeing the markets respond to that liquidity, but the Fed cannot do anything about solvency. We saw a bankrupt this past weekend, JCPenney. We've seen Neiman Marcus go down as well, and we will see others if we get a second wave, right? As all 50 states are looking to open up right now, let's see what happens in the fall. Just be aware of the cracks, and at the end of the day, what do? We focus on what's happening on the charts, right? We are technicians. Take a deeper perspective with me right now. Just fall back, take a moment and look at the chart and tell me what you see. We see a couple of things. We absolutely definitely see the strong sell-off and downtrend. And then we saw a sharp recovery. That looked like a V, didn't it? On its way to being a V. And then what has happened since? Well, I see us kind of flatlining into a channel, right? You see that? That's where we're at right now. The most important line on this chart right now, and the one that I want you to focus on, I'm going to make it bright for you. Again, take a step back, look what's going on. Don't get caught up on the intraday moves. Let me highlight this line for you. This is the most important line on the chart right now. Why is that the most important line on the chart? Because as long as this holds, and we had the fake out last week, we traded it accordingly, right? If this line breaks, the sellers do gain momentum here. If they break below the support at 28.09, at that point, the momentum should really trigger to the downside. Now let's take a look at that also before we get into what we're looking at right now. All right, this is in real time right now. I'm looking on the 30-minute. I'm going to come up to the 1 hour. All right. Now you could see it looks like this resistance is so far being faded at 29.72. Always pay attention to the time of day right now. We have about 43 minutes until the session closes. All right, pay attention. Last 40 minutes is really important. That's when the generals are playing. That's when the funds, institutions are making their moves. Pay attention to the price action into the close over here. I am not interested if we come up here anytime before tomorrow morning at taking a long. I'll tell you that much. Before I get into the rest of it, as we were just talking about the potential downside over here, right? Fed is very worried. You've seen Powell, his last couple of appearances in the FOMC press conference. He didn't seem very confident at all. On 60 Minutes this weekend, he didn't seem matter of fact, he seemed worried, right? Now, I know a lot of people are quite bullish. I want to look at something else with you. Let's look back at this chart over here. This is showing, there's two things that I want you to look at over here. The triple Q, right? Which on the way down had maintained the least amount of damage, and on the way up has seen the biggest gain. And then I want you to focus over here on the S&P 600 small cap ETF. Okay, you can find that over here in pink. That led on the way down, right? And has since not recovered. What happens if we see forward, downward movement? What's going to lead? Is it going to be the index overall? Is it going to be the triple Q? Or is it going to be the small caps? Which businesses have the least amount of funding? Right? Here's a play at that I was looking. Here it is. It's the ETF, right? It's SLY. I was checking that out on Webull. Also, what about going long the triple Q as a hedge and short SLY? That's something I'm considering for a longer term position. Now, back to the charts over here. What play am I looking for, right? Well, to be honest, I'm not really. I've seen the market kind of consolidating pretty strongly over here, right? Going on a couple of days now between this resistance, between this support, and we're having trouble getting over that right now. We're having trouble getting over that right now. Am I looking to go short here if we make a lower low at this time of day? It's a good time of day to get into a trade, right? What happens if I have my stop loss where I know I'm wrong right above the two highs, the two peaks above the resistance at 29.72, coming in somewhere around 29.82, 29.83, right? What's my risk reward just coming back to test this trend line? That's pretty favorable. That's pretty favorable, right? Step back with me. Let's go to a higher time frame. Let's take a look on the 4-hour time frame. Let's step back. What happens above this resistance? All right? I want to be long above that resistance. Am I seeing any indication from the price action today going into the overnight session that I want to take a look at the long side over here? Are you, I should ask, are you seeing any indication that you're looking to go ahead and play the long side right here? What is the current condition of the market? Look over here. Look what we're seeing here. We're seeing an inside bar on the 4-hour time frame. All right? Now, we've been trading up off that trend line support, right? And now we're into the resistance again. It could go either way, right? I'm not interested in playing it up here right now. Maybe tomorrow morning, maybe during the New York session. Join us for the live stream. We'll figure it out. Right now, my question is to me, that the question that you have to be asking yourself, do you like along above this resistance over here? Has today's price action, which if you look at what happened ever since New York went to lunch, prices not gone anywhere. It's right back where it is. After the Fed meeting minutes, if the market was not able to yet rally, what kind of indication does that give you, right? These are the things I'm asking myself. Not that I do want to be long above 29.72. And the reason that I want to be long above 29.72 is because there's a nice trade up in here. There's a nice trade before the really strong resistance around 30.96. I would like to be, but there's no rush, right? We've had 2 opportunities, and so far they've both been rejected. I think I'd rather see what New York does with that tomorrow. You know, I think I'd rather see what New York does if I'm going to be getting long. What about getting short over here, right? Sellers haven't been able to do much. Now, we are coming towards the last half hour of trading. We have about 38 minutes left here going into the close, right? What about, what other guide could I give myself? What happened intraday over here today? Where was the last swing low? Well, this is the last swing low, right where my mouse is right now. You can see it coming in around 29.59, right? And now look to the left, and you could see that was resistance. This was resistance, and it's now flipped to support, right? So now what happens if we trade below that? That would be my first maybe indication that we're getting maybe start making lower lows here. Maybe that would be a place to go ahead and get short, right? Coming in just into the trend line, right? What's my risk reward? Better than 1-to-1. I'll take a 1-to-1 risk reward all day long, because what I do as I get into the nearest support when selling or resistance when buying is normally, instead of looking to take that profit, what I'm looking to do is move my stop to break even and or lock in profits, and I'm looking to push that trade further down to the next support or when buying resistance level to the upside, right? So going into the trade, I'll take a 1-to-1 risk reward all day long. This is something to watch. It's the only thing that I really see. But right now, I feel more comfortable observing. And what a good place that is to be. How many people have been caught on the wrong side of the market? Look over here, we protected ourselves. Look over here, we protected ourselves. Look over here, we protected ourselves. The momentum players, right? You think they're having a good time in this choppy, tight consolidation range we're having over here? I don't know. That's what I'm looking at. I really enjoyed this analysis over here. I hope you did too. Listen, if you learned anything in this video, if this analysis was able to help you, I know you're doing your own analysis. I hope that you're using my analysis to firm up whatever positions you're looking at, whatever you're looking to take, hedging yourself. If you learned anything from this video or appreciated the time taken to share it with you, go ahead and smash that like button. I hope to see you all tomorrow in the live stream. And if not, wait until the next S&P video, and I'll talk to you then.